you want to save money on your trading card purchases, we have a promo link over at 50cards.shop. Enter the promo code ATNIGHT to get 5% off your order. Why, happy Grilled Cheese Day, everybody. Welcome to Nexus at Night, the weekly Vanguard podcast. I'm Atlas.
I'm Matt.
I'm Root Beer.
I don't think it's actually Grilled Cheese Day, but I have a grilled cheese. So for me, it's Grilled Cheese Day. And
I'm sure there is a cheese day.
I know they do that on, I think, I want to say Daily Zeitgeist or some more news. One of those where they're like, today is National Start and get to the meat of the...
National Grilled Cheese Sandwich Day, April 12th.
April 12th, all right. Let's see, is that on Thursday? Can I do that joke again? Nope, doesn't matter. Anyway, we're talking about Ridelines this week. Suffice it to say, Ridelines are the bread and butter of how Standard works as a format. Yeah.
Yep.
And sometimes people use them the wrong way.
What do you mean the wrong way?
The wrong way is in not the Rideline that's supposed to go with the grade 3 that you're riding in the Rideline.
I see. So, like, it's like one of the TD bosses not playing their TD Rideline.
Yeah.
I see.
I think that's going to happen in any trading card game where the game designers will go, all right, here's what you're supposed to do. And then people who are topping tournaments are going, this is what we did.
Yes.
Stuff happened. Take that. So I wanted to bring this up just because Bushiroad is very careful with their card design in terms of tying effects to specifically the grade 3 or on the way up, that sort of thing. When this is written by the grade 2 in the Rideline, do this thing or whatever. And I think that's important to cover just because it's card design that has happened in spite of what Bushiroad is telling us to do. Not card design, deck building that's happened in spite. So do we want to start with one in particular? Because I have all the Ridelines pulled up here.
Well, Nirvana is not really usable outside of its own deck. I don't know what Eugene's Rideline does. Bobsagra does get used in Dragonic Overlord.
Ooh, do tell.
It is just a way for you to thin the deck. You just pull the shield out of the deck. It's discard fodder. You don't do anything with it. You can't use it in Overlord. It is purely just deck thinning.
That's interesting.
That's incredible.
And unlike Bar, which searches a grade 1, you don't have to counterblast. But yeah, I remember there was a point when I was looking at Japanese lists for Overlord, and people were just playing the Bobsagra Rideline just to take the one card out of the deck. And be able to recycle the discard fodder.
Is the Overlord Rideline not good enough in that case, or what's the deal?
I mean, it saves you cards, because you get the shield, so it thins the deck, and then next turn you can discard the shield, get it back, and then discard it again. That's it.
So I see. So it basically acts as like a free +2 rather than the counterblast +1.
Yes. But then Nahalem calls itself too.
Oh, I see. So instead of counterblast +2, it's a free +2, but you lose the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're stuck with the shield. Also, like if you happen to get the shield on the Mulligan, really hurts you, doesn't it?
I mean, unlucky.
Yeah, get good. But yeah, that is
Gem Knight, darn it. Yeah.
That is something that I saw Overlord lists doing. I don't know if they still do that. It was just something I remember happening.
I guess for Overlord, plussing to the hand is worth much more than plussing to your board.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can definitely see the reasoning for that.
Yeah. I think most decks these days are probably just running the actual Overlord line.
Reasonable.
I think one thing about Bar that we overlooked is that the effect is when wrote upon by Nahalem Counterblast, search your deck for up to one grade 1 card.
Mm-hmm.
anything.
True.
Yeah. Put it in your hand and shuffle. So I think that should be worth it over just the shield numbers.
Just spend the counterblast, get your PG or whatever, and
Yeah.
all good.
Get your one essential card that makes the deck functional.
Yeah, that too. The PR.
Although it is dependent on the counterblast, whereas the shield isn't. So there might be a thing where like, oh, I took OT on damage first turn. Well, that sucks.
The PR might make the Overlord line quite a bit nicer too.
Yeah, I think more people use the actual Overlord line. It's just like I remember seeing a couple of topping lists like way back in like October, I think, when the deck was first becoming relevant.
I see.
In Japan. That
Gotcha.
used Sagra.
I wonder if people were just doing like that was the only way people were like trying to make Overlord work prior to the PR, and the PR kind of was like, well, we can just go back to this now.
No, like I think the PR was already out. Like
that's what I'm saying, but I'm saying it was like a holdover from before when the PR existed, and people just haven't adapted to where they wanted to
possibly.
Be. Interesting.
Yeah.
Although you would think you would just try the Rideline.
People who I'm gonna just like warn this now. You're gonna see a lot of people who try other Ridelines because their Rideline sucks, and I say this with like enough foreshadowing to bury me. So,
damn, whatever could you mean?
Whatever could I mean? A certain Wolfie boy. Anyway, anything with Tamayura? Is that
no?
That's not. Yeah, that's
like you have to use Tamayura for her list.
Yeah.
And then I think Shoujo Doji also just has to use its own Rideline.
True.
Yes,
because the deck doesn't top anything.
Some of these are more xenophobic than others. Bruce, no.
Bruce is actually like somewhat generic.
It is, but there's not a deck that like needs the soul that much that can't already get it in the Rideline, in their own Rideline.
I feel like early Borrow Magnus all the way back in set 1 just used the Bruce line because it's like soul charged somewhat consistently, if I don't remember.
It wasn't tied again to Counterblast, so there were people who were like, "Well, I don't want to take the OT on." I know I keep bringing that up as an example, but
yeah. Also, that one promo grade 3 Favrenil. In Deer Days, the AI uses the Bruce Ride line because I think that's the only generic one.
I see.
And Favrenil does not have its own ride line. That is something.
That's hilarious.
That's definitely something that I didn't really consider when we thought of this
because they made a bunch of
Graham Grace.
Yeah, Graham Grace and Favrenil, and there was also that one grade 3 in Lyrical where they just released a bunch of promo grade 3s. There are also a couple of main set. I think most of them are Dark States too, like grade 3s that are Vanguard only, that like don't have their own ride lines. They just sort of exist.
What do people play Graham Grace with?
Blaster Dark.
That makes sense.
We'll get to that.
Oh yeah.
Barrow Magnus?
Borrow Magnus? I don't believe people use Borrow Magnus for anything, because I think his is actually somewhat xenophobic.
Yeah.
I think what's it called? Deep Sonicer is helpful in terms of
soul charge. And then
yeah.
The grade 2, what's the grade? Is the grade 2 what I'm thinking of? Yeah. This card saw some play in other decks, but not as a part of the ride line. It was just shoved in like set 1 decks.
Yeah, because it's just like Counterblast 1, Soul Charge 2. But yeah, as a ride line, you can't use it outside of Borrow Magnus.
Yeah.
Deep Sonicer, I think, has potential if decks can consistently get up to 10 outside of Barrow Magnus, but most can't.
Right. You have to kind of play like a fair amount to get to 10 even, at least early.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to do Drejeweled and just not Soul Blast anything. Till we get there.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Lukier might be able to get there.
Maybe. You have to put your cards back into the soul at the end phase, right?
You do.
Or you have like an ability that like helps you out for doing that.
I think if you play more aggressive with the soul charging and less about the like curating that it's supposed to it's trying to do,
but
you
will you be at 10 when it boosts?
I do not know. I'm just saying it's like something I wasn't thinking of, and now I've thought of it. So
I see.
To be continued. Greed on.
Nope, that one's not.
No, not the actual ride line, but some of the Greed on stuff.
Yeah, but the ride line does not see play outside of itself. In fact, that one is interesting because I believe that's the only one that has an effect where you like reveal the card in your ride line to do something.
Oh, Chaos?
No, the grade 1 for Greed on. You have to reveal Greed on from your ride deck to draw a card.
Remember those tournaments where people just playing random grade 3s in their Brandgate ride deck just to play like Gravidia 3 times? That was incredible.
Oh yeah, that was a weird time.
Yeah, it was to get the diversity cut or something.
Yeah, that's
Very cool.
Wonderful idea. Bushiroad should definitely keep doing that.
I forgot about the diversity cut. That was such a dumb idea. Holy shit.
You gotta make it seem like the meta is varied or something.
Yeah. Just
artificially.
You have a bunch of people playing the most like random bullshit, and then surprise Chronojet.
All right. Well, Chronojet's that'll be its own episode probably.
Probably.
Once it comes to the West, and we
I was like play testing. What's his name? The mecha guy, and I was using like Chronojet as a benchmark because I always take like a meta deck whenever I'm just goldfish testing, and Chronojet, when it goes off, is pretty ridiculous.
Yes. It is very good.
Yep.
There was one turn where I couldn't stride, and it's just like, alright, 40k, no grade 1s.
Damn.
For people who don't listen to our bonus show, patreon.com/Nexus at Night, my locals this last week, I only won against Youthbird because Pineapple Cat was like, all right, 25k, no grade 1s. And he was like, shit.
Hey, yeah. It do be like that.
Yep.
But yeah, sometimes even when Chronojet doesn't stride, just being big, huge with a guard restrict is like good enough.
Mm-hmm. All right. Chaos, anything with Chaos?
No, unfortunately that one's also pretty xenophobic.
Yeah. Which is
I've never seen anyone play this deck, so
me neither. I have not seen this deck in real life. Ever.
I have. They keep decking out every time I watch them play.
That's great.
Oh man, poor guys. I really like this little James Bond dude.
Yeah, like the deck is almost competent. I played against it once with crossover dress. I miracle healed and they decked out the next turn.
That's funny.
That's unfortunate. I think that's going to be one of those decks where, like, it's going to get something halfway decent only for them, and then they're going to be like, it's time to take over, and then they get, like, you see maybe one top 8.
As long as they're not as annoying as Zorga players, we're good.
Yeah.
We have a weird hatred for Zorga on this show. And
I don't think it's weird at all.
Yeah. Like, I'm looking on Dexander's website, and there are, like, no Chaos tops coming out of set 8.
Like, you do not need to attach your personal identity to a Vanguard deck. Just not something you need to do.
Too late. Sorry. Gonna
kind of just don't. It's a card game.
Mm-hmm.
Calling Zorga bad is not calling you a bad person for playing it. It is basically just saying, hey, this deck's pretty weak.
Okay, but also we're objectively wrong because it's like gotta go to, it's in the top 10, isn't it? For tops?
No. For tops, maybe it's because people keep playing it, but like I think the one top it had was like the person checking over trigger like every turn or every game. But I mean, is what it is.
I don't know. VG Paradox prove us wrong.
Let's see. Top 10 in Japan format, absolutely not.
Okay.
Top 10 for global, let me see. Still no, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I think there's one somewhere.
Yeah, it has like It has a handful of like top 8s, but it's nowhere near like top 10.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so I was wrong then. But
yep,
when you can't get a 4th attack, that's Zorga.
Yeah, and like other decks just do it. It does better.
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right. Drajewald, you're making this, aren't you?
Yes. Let's see.
This deck's
I know
cool.
the grade, because
I like
the
it.
grade 1 just calls itself out, and the grade 2 is like on hit soul charge. So this one could theoretically. Oh, and when it's rode upon by Drajewald, you can soul charge and draw a card. So it can still kind of work as a generic ride line if you only cared about like raw soul charging, just because of like the grade 1 does its own thing. The grade 2 still has its on hit, even if it doesn't have the ride ability, but like it does work better with Drajewald. I just don't know if like
I think that's the case in all of these because
you certainly wouldn't play this outside of Drajewald.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's any deck that wants to play this outside of Drajewald, but like unless you just wanted to call out the grade 1 as a 13k attacker and then it goes back into the soul.
I know. I keep pointing back to Pale Moon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like, so the ability of the grade 1 is like you can call it out when it's rode upon by the grade 2, and then it has a generic ability that when attacks are boost, it gets 5k, and at the end of the battle, you put it into the soul. That's mandatory.
Okay.
So like, but you could actually make it you could argue for it being generic enough that you could see it in other decks. I just don't know if it's actually worth it.
Right.
Okay. Chronojet is definitely
definitely not.
Yeah, that's
but it is
tied to that crest.
It's good enough in Chronojet. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
All right, Lukier, I know for a fact is not.
You need to have Pale Moon cards.
Yeah, but it's good with those cards. So.
Yeah, and that's why like Lukier is never going to play a different ride line, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's no reason to. All right, on to Cater Sanctuary. Bastion is it's too tied to how the deck works.
Yeah, they would need to release another deck that just plays some critical massive grade 3s for this to be played in something else, and their ride line would need to suck.
Also, these do need to ride like each other. The grade 2 needs to be rode upon by Bastion.
Oh, never mind. Yeah.
So, where it's like flash 3 grade 3s, draw a card, right?
For some reason, I thought that was just when he was rode upon, but yeah, that would ruin that.
Yep. Same thing for the Hexa Orb ride line. Those need Hexa Orb.
Tragic.
I wouldn't
really imagine playing the Hexa Orb ride line or anything else anyway.
You barely want to play the Hexa Orb ride line in itself, but you do it anyways, although you have the option for the next one.
Have you considered
Phantom Blaster Dragon? Yeah.
This is probably the one that's the friendliest.
This is a solid ride line, straight up.
Yes. But this is probably the one everyone thinks of when they think of a generic ride line, because Javelin activates when rode upon by Blaster Dark, and then Blaster Dark just does his own thing on the Vanguard circle where he gets an extra drive.
True.
And then you get a benefit from Phantom Blaster Dragon because he calls out Blaster Dark, but that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's nice if you're playing the dragon itself, but yeah, otherwise you're just like, screw it.
By that point, it's turn 3. Go off.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is probably the one that like sees the most generic play, because I know people were debating whether or not it was worthwhile in Bastion, just because Bastion you get a random call that might be nothing, and then a random draw that might be nothing, versus just extra drive checks. But Bastion is also fairly counterblast heavy, at least in the early days. It might still be now, and Blaster Dark using up that early counterblast could be a problem. Hexa Orb, the ride line counterblasts anyways for the grade 1, so I know a lot of Hexa Orb decks use Blaster Dark. I still prefer her own ride line because the grade 2 looks at your top 3 and lets you stack them.
Oh, true.
So like that's still important for trying to make Hexa Orb function, but I think there are enough stacking cards that you could probably get away with Blaster Dark too.
Sometimes you just need a stack to find the next Hexa Orb.
And of course,
or the little dude that lets you search Hexa Orb just for free. What were you saying?
It's too late if you're already attacking to get it.
Yeah, and of course, Graham Grace, because he does not have a ride line, has to use Blaster Dark because it's the most generic.
There are worse ride lines.
What I will say is that of all the nations that are like, oh, I need a generic Rideline, Cater probably is the best off with this.
Yeah, I think this one's good. You get a free thing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Blaster Dark in grade 2, which is not the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think the thing that sets it apart from other Ridelines is that it's not just it's a swap where you lose a rear guard but you get an extra drive check. It's pressure.
Mm-hmm. Also, if your opponent called things early, you can retire them.
Yes, that too. Pressure.
Or if they were forced to call something early by some other dumb Rideline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which foreshadowing. MLB is kind of that same situation.
I'm gonna be honest. I have no fucking clue what this Rideline does. I've never read it.
It has the same thing going for it, where like the grade 1 activates when you ride a grade 2 with Blaster, any grade 2, so you could also just use it with Blaster Dark. But you look at top 7 for a grade 2 with Blaster, add it to your hand, and if you didn't reveal a card, call the Wingull Brave from Soul to Rearguard Circle. So if you started with Wingull, ride Marin, you can like search top 7 for a Blaster. If you whiff, just call the Wingull, so it's still a free body.
Which you can then off with Blaster Dark.
Yeah,
if you decide to do it that way.
Blaster Blade is just counterblast 1, retire an opponent's rear guard, and if you didn't retire anything, draw a card.
So much less of a trade.
So yeah, this one is technically also generic and just suffers from Blaster Dark being better.
It's the cooler Blaster. It's just what it is.
Yeah?
You go out behind
Blade.
the school and teach you how to smoke.
Blade. Yeah.
More than 10 minutes into
true.
the episode.
Even Aichi thought so for like his brief villain arc.
Ah, that's right.
That was
the first villain arc.
True.
God, here's hoping Gleaming Garmore, shout out to her, does history of the anime.
I remember when the Tachikaze guys were freaking out about Aichi sacrificing his own units, and I'm like, you play Tachikaze?
Yeah. That's my thing. You're doing my thing. That's not fair.
But they were acting like it was like immoral. It was like,
oh yeah,
you're
playing Tachikaze.
And this was before Tachikaze was like good at calling its stuff back.
Yeah.
This is pre.
Was this even before Tachikaze was a real deck? Because it took like 3 sets for them to get triggers.
Yeah, it was really no. This would have been much later because you would have had set 5 out.
Yeah.
Before
set 4 at least, right? Because that's when PBD came out.
Yeah.
I think he does regular PBD for a little bit.
And
then MLB is like his compromise between the two.
Yeah, I don't remember when after the first tournament he goes to this happens, but it's pretty shortly afterward. Anyways, enough about the show.
Yeah. All right. Thigrea still, pretty.
That one needs Thigreas.
Yeah.
Same with Youthberg.
Although you do have Moth Maple, which is tied to it, that you can use in pretty much anything.
Yeah, Maple is the card that you use it. And I saw this on Twitter earlier when I was just browsing, but like apparently people are doing this thing where you put the grade 1 Maple in your ride line. That way it's like always in your soul for you to use later.
That's pretty cool. That's the idea. Especially if your ride line just mostly doesn't matter. It's just kind of free value, right?
Yeah, because last time, when I was playing against Thigrea in BRO, every Thigrea I played against kept missing, or I only played against one, and they missed their ride line, like every time.
Woof. That would be later that you ran into 2 Thigreas in a row, right?
Yeah, when Thigrea became my nemesis.
Yeah.
Happens.
Yeah, because like the grade 1 just like checks your top card, and if it's a grade 2 or less, you can call it as rest, and people are just like, yeah, we could just run Maple instead.
True.
Yeah, and then have that ready. Can you use that in any other deck with that sort of thing, or no?
I don't think so. For the grade 1 Maple, no.
Yeah, grade 1, because I know these like alternate versions of the glitter tie-ins, they're like even more strict.
Yeah, because that one's like if when a grade 3 or greater is placed and you Persona Road, then you can call the Maple.
There you go. All right, time for Graham. No, Youth Bert, like you said. Minerva, no.
I saw some Minerva decks that were running what's it called Blaster Dark. I don't think it goes the other way around because you need Genesis cards.
Yeah, that's the thing with these like encounter cards is they make it strict by going like, all right, this clan only.
Yes.
Which that mistake I made with Kay and Bedivere, where I was like, you can run this in anything, and it turns out no, you can't, which is a shame because I thought that would have been cool.
Yeah, but no, they have plans on them, unfortunately. All right, and now for your favorite ride line.
Oh my god. Okay, so here's the thing with Magnolia. Karis and Lattice have this effect that when you ride on top of them, in Karis's case, it's free. In Lattice, you Soul Blast one. Check top card, and then you must call it, unless it's in the grade 1's case. If it's not a grade 2 or less unit, it goes into your soul. So if it's grade 3 or greater or an order, it goes into your soul. In Lattice's case, if it's not a unit anything, it goes into your hand. The problem is that 9 times out of 10, you will call your perfect guard or a trigger, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it drives me nuts, and that is what made me switch to different ride lines.
Yeah.
And then
what
eventually
did you switch to?
I'll get to that in a second, but I eventually had to go back because later support for Magnolia is like, all right, on play, if your Vanguard's a Sylvan Horn Beast, which is what these things are. So I was stuck with it. Yeah. That was a problem.
Unfortunate. But yes, what did you switch to? I was trying to get a nice transition.
Yeah, so that'd be this, Zorga. Ranker Chain, the grade 1, act, you can Soul Blast 1, draw 2 cards, and then you discard 2, or discard an order.
Quite good.
Yep.
You have like 6 or 7 orders or enough, really.
Mm-hmm. In that version of the deck, you'd run like 5, and you'd be okay for the most part. You would hard mulligan 4 orders.
Yep.
Be like, all right, this first 5 is good, but I don't have an order. Whole hand back. Dig, and then that way that's 12 cards into the deck looking for an order. You'll probably find one.
You're pretty likely to get like if you have like 5 or 6 orders, you're pretty likely to find one.
Mm-hmm.
Or like at least you really you said 12 cards.
Yeah, because it's your original 5 and then another 5 and then you draw 2. Oh no,
and you draw for turn. So 13.
Okay, 13.
13 out of 49 is quite high.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or not even that because cut out your ride line.
Oh yeah, 46.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Pretty good. Usually, pretty good chance of getting an order, and then like worst case scenario, if you don't, you drop 2 things. Like you have Wild Intelligence, you'll get something back. So then the grade 2 is Black Tears Husk, which is when it's placed on Van, you get an order back from drop. So if the thing you discarded from Ranker Chain, or just if you're discarding an order for the ride line cost, you can just get it back. And then also on Rear Guard, if you played an order this turn, it gets 5k. It's a very generic and very solid ride line that I think any deck that can make orders work that has a terrible ride line like Magnolia does, I think it's worth trying to make work. So,
yeah. By the way, with 5 orders, you have like an 82% chance in your mulligan to find it, and then an 88 if you have 6 for whatever reason. So pretty good. Like you're finding it most of the time.
Yeah. Yep. Then you got Flagbird. Flagbird is one you can splash in other decks if you. What?
I mean, you can.
Like, okay, so when you ride on top of Inroad Shooter, it pops itself out.
Yeah, then the grade 2. Yeah, no, this can be splashed in other things. I just haven't seen anyone actually do it.
It's not the best thing. I think it's easier doing the Zorga ride line in stuff.
Yeah. Well, this one just gets you basically a free column.
Yeah, which, not bad.
Then the rear guards don't do anything because you don't have Flagberg.
Mm-hmm. Roroa. So I tried to make this work shortly. Did you want to talk about it?
This one is extremely generic because all Roroa does is make tokens when you ride him.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen people splashing Roroa into Flagberg. People have been definitely using it in Leonorn. I don't know if anyone has tried it in any other decks, but those two are and of course Roroa's own deck, obviously.
Okay.
But yeah, like I've seen Roroa get splashed into a decent number of Stoicheia decks.
Yeah, as long as you can make something work with those plant tokens. I tried to do it and then splash that order that's like, all right, retire 2 rear guards, draw a card, and then put the order into Soul and countercharge 1. Or whatever the thing was. It's the weird dragon freaking the hell out on it.
Fearful Malice.
Fearful Malice, thank you. But I was thinking to myself, playing it, I was thinking, why couldn't I just have the Sword Rideline as well as calling the plant token somehow? So, rip. Leonorn, you have more experience with this than I do.
The grade 1 just pops itself out and is a 13k booster for your Vanguard. The grade 2 needs to be rode upon by Leonorn, though.
Oh, that's a rough time.
Yeah, and I think actual Leonorn decks don't even play it because the deck needs a lot of soul, and this Rideline uses up a lot of soul.
Gotcha.
So what do they use instead?
Roroa.
Oh, pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, free plants is not bad.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. It's just like when I played the deck with its own Rideline, I appreciated that the Rideline itself gave you options for what you could discard just because the grade 2 can revive any grade 1 you want.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is just like the grade 1 calls itself out, and then the grade 2 is soul blasting, which leaves you with 1 soul left for Leonorn herself, and you need to be soul blasting every turn.
That's tragic.
Gotta use that dragon and better draw into that dragon.
Just Persona Ride every turn, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Tearful Malice. Let's see. Maelstrom. Again, that clan thing.
Yep.
So, stiffen that. Wolfie Boy here. This is also something that was interesting to me. That
what makes
that
it
one
interesting?
Mostly works with itself, though.
Yeah. What did you say? What makes it interesting?
Yeah.
The play style, you guys. It's 1,000 years old. My girlfriend's from Canada. My uncle works for Nintendo. Not for real. I think it was like on the way up. It had the potential to, and then because it was tied to Granfia, it stuck with it. So, all right, let's move on to Braingate. I don't.
Prison is only usable in itself.
Yeah, there's like I guess theoretically you could play it in something else in a prison that doesn't do anything to draw a card, but there are surely better Ridelines to do that.
Yeah, like Soul Charge 3 or something.
Yeah,
if you wanted to actually play the prison.
I think that would be interesting. I've heard of Dex and Premium just teching the prison.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you could do.
Yeah,
but
honestly, like, because the grade 2 just, like, imprisons a card from hand. You could actually just do it. No one has, but you could.
Yeah.
I would love to see somebody being like, I'm going to tech it in, and then slowly over time, they just build prison.
I think there's just probably easier ways to gain advantage from your Rideline. Because imprisoning one card is actually not great. I think what made this deck a little stronger is that you're imprisoning quite a bit of cards, so it became really hard to kind of get them all back into play or into circulation. But if it's just one card at any point, they each be like Soul Blast Call Unit. And you're like, well, okay.
And then if those cards were, when placed on blank, great, awesome, thanks.
Yeah, you can just like discard the prison and do something else. I think is like a better idea. But like at that point, like there's probably just a better Rideline.
Let's see, Orphist.
I don't remember what this Rideline does.
That one is splashable in other archetypes, and I think I've seen some Gravidia lists using the Orphist line.
Really?
So, Yeah, so the grade 1 just gets you any world card. So you use it to grab the one that makes the Shadow Army.
The best world.
Yeah, the grade
Eclipse
2...
Moonlight. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the grade 2 just gains 5k when you play a world.
Oh.
So I've seen Gravidia decks just using this ride line to grab Eclipse Moonlight and make the Shadow Army.
That feels incorrect, but what do I know?
Mm-hmm. I think it's mostly Japanese lists. I'm not sure if any like Western lists do that.
Yeah, I just think getting the meteor set up and then like kind of grinding it out, it was better at the time. But I mean, that was back when Gravidia was played.
Yeah,
the Eclipsed Moonlight thing was, I think, marked from Japanese lists for a little bit, and then people were like, "This is clunky. I'd rather just have other."
No, I've seen like Japanese. No, actually, topping lists in NA do this too.
Yeah. Oh, like use the Orpheus ride line?
They use worlds. They use the Orpheus ride line. Like they just use it to grab the worlds.
Oh well.
Okay.
I guess you just play more meteors and just always get the 13 and just play one world and just get the token.
Yeah.
Rather than like
there's one of them that just straight up uses Combine Rusher in the ride line. I know that was also something else Gravidia lists did.
My God, Gravidia lists just do whatever they want, don't they?
Yes, they do. But yeah, it seems like the thing to do is to just always play the grade 1 for Orpheus to grab Eclipse Moonlight, and then like the grade 2 can be whatever the heck you want.
That's
do you think that
so funny?
Bushra never intended for that sort of thing to happen, but how annoyed do you think they are when they see things like that?
I mean, I think like if you're designing a game, like we have this ride line, we have some like canned ride lines if you want, but like you should be open to the idea that people can just put whatever cards they want in there. I think that's good.
Huh?
But like it would be really bizarre to me if Bushiroad was kind of upset that people were just like putting whatever cards they want in their ride line. Like there's no reason that we should have to be attached to their canned ride lines.
Yeah.
If they wanted
this
that,
isn't how you're supposed to play the game.
If they wanted that, they would have put a rule about it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, okay. So the grade 1 is real good. The grade 2 is meh.
Yeah, the grade 2 is meh, but I think most people just play it because, unless you're a weirdo and you just put Combined Rusher in your ride line.
Honestly, between like Orpheus and Gravidia cards, I can barely tell them apart. Like, at a glance. So if I look at somebody's Gravidia deck, I'm like, wow, that's a bunch of cards that all look the same to me.
Mm-hmm.
The early standard ride line cards are less xenophobic than the newer ones.
It certainly seems that way, yes. So they really don't want you to use the ride lines out of archetype, but like I don't understand why not.
Yeah.
Some of them suck, like calling your over trigger off the top of the deck. I don't know.
Happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is the Gravidia ride line really not that worth?
It sets up a meteor, and then let's see. So yeah, this one's placed. You look at your top 7 for any number of meteors and add them to your hand. The grade 2 just draws a card when you have a meteor, right? So I honestly like just getting the token for the early pressure might actually be more worthwhile.
If you
especially with because Hell Hazard also counts as multiple meteors for Nordlinger's effect.
It's also possible that like the way EVA was began to be played, instead of just like pushing for a bunch of meteors, just kind of like using like one meteor here, or like 3 meteors here, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like made it so that you just needed to find like enough meteors, and so the 13k was probably just more value than a bunch of extra meteors that you don't particularly need.
Yeah.
Where's the tipping point?
What do you mean?
Like, how many meteors do you need to where you're set up versus
too
many?
I mean, I think like a lot of people play like around 8 or 9.
Yeah. I think 10 actually. They play 10? Like 6 of Neatness and then 4 copies of Hell Hazard.
I forgot they had a second meteor at some point.
The pink one.
Yeah.
The
one that counts as multiple meteors. So I think you just play like 10 of them.
Yeah, and so at that point you're like so likely to find a meteor that like you don't really need to worry too much about searching extra ones. Because you just need, some number of meteors.
Yeah, and then that can start to cut into your rear guard.
You start popping things.
Some of your rear guards can probably search meteors.
Or get them back from drop.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Ava.
I assume there's no shot you don't play the Rideline in this deck.
Yeah. You absolutely play Evas.
And you
cannot is technically generic too, because all you do is search research orders. So it's really just if your deck needs research orders.
So if they print another deck that uses research orders, you might be able to play the Eva Rideline in it.
Yeah.
So
foreshadowing.
If that deck needs to take an afternoon nap regardless of place, then
yes, foreshadowing.
Fine. Oh, interesting. Dianos.
I legitimately forgot this Rideline existed.
Me too.
When did they? What set was this? When did this happen? This is not real. This card was just made up just now.
I agree.
I literally forgot what his freaking deal is. Onward. I think I saw somebody
if we read the grade 3 and it sucks, can we move on?
Yes, we can. I think I remember seeing somebody being like, all right, I got these. They're from DBT06.
Yeah. So all of your front row B heroes, they had to errata this so it wouldn't work with other hero archetypes.
That's something else.
In their card names get 5k, and then when attacks, their whole thing is they have a base, and you have to recruit units into your base, and then this guy calls cards out of your base.
Okay, so the Rideline's going to search for a base, and then maybe throw something in the base, so it's not going to matter outside of the deck unless they also have base cards. Understood.
Yes.
Very nice. Very cool.
Yeah, so a card with hero.
I don't believe this card existed before just now.
I've literally never the same one. Dude, a lot of these are just like, okay, this one I remember just because our friend Eric is like super into it.
I'm aware of this one because it just got support in set 9, and the support is actually pretty good.
Yeah, the order or the grade 2 they got is nuts.
Yes. And like the carrier order is also pretty good.
The grade 2 makes the deck playable because it just does everything.
Yes, it does. It's so good that I'm testing it out in Avant-Gardia too, just because it searches out your persona ride for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure this deck is like good, but that grade 2 is insane.
Yeah. But yeah, this is not usable outside of its archetype because product cards.
Yeah.
Got it.
Archetype is literally the same as Eva.
Okay.
Yeah. I like... Oh, okay, there we go.
No, like the grades 1 and 2 are literally the same card.
That's very really cool. Funny. Well,
and then there's Avant-Garde here.
So yeah, I think you would actually be better off playing the Eva Rideline because all of Eva's research orders need an Eva Vanguard.
I see. Budget version? I don't know what to tell you.
It's not like the Eva Rideline is all that expensive. They're just commons.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you want SPs.
It's the orders that are expensive, although they are dropping recently.
Yeah.
So good stuff. Lyrical, you want to speed through these real quick?
Are any of them playable outside of the archetype?
Kyrie is. So. I am testing out Kyrie in Bunny Girl right now.
You know, that checks out. The grade 1 is super good in Kyrie.
Yes.
Just being able to like it's okay, it's basically a free unit.
Yeah. So this one's just like gets back whatever you discard as long as it's grade 1 or less, and then the grade 2 can bounce the thing to hand.
Quite nice.
For people being like, what are they looking at? I'll put the link to the page in the show notes so you can like go look at the Ridelines because it's nice and organized and you can like scroll through it.
Yeah, the grade are you playing Melty as well?
I'm playing a couple copies of Melty and Bunny Girl.
I see. Melty's just like such a powerful card, like, and the Kyrie Rideline like really enhances it too, just because you can kind of get to rebuy Melty, especially if you don't need a lot of counterblast in the deck. It's really nice.
Yes, and then I believe Clarissa is not usable outside her own Rideline. Same with Alestia. I think I might have seen Alestial tech in something, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I don't
Loro and Willista, I'm pretty sure they aren't they?
Willista, I saw some people teching into Kyrie, actually. Because that one just gets you soul charges. Because it just you put a card from hand to soul to get a gem card, and then the grade 2, I think, just like when you play a gem, you draw a card.
Like, yeah, you use up all your soul pretty quick, but you only need it on the grade 3 ride and like one else.
Yeah, I have seen people splashing Willista into other decks just for like soul charging. Because like the gems go into soul, and then this one also like the grade 1 puts a card from hand to soul.
I'm just confused what you need the soul for.
Whatever.
Alright.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe Felty Rosa is not usable outside her own ride line because she needs ghost cards.
Felty Rosa is a weird league of her own. So strange. Let's see, Herminia.
Herminia, I think those are all like powerful. So let's see. Vanguard Rearguard, Soul Blast 1, discard a card. If your soul has no card, then you can ride the grade 2 free. And then the grade 2 is like... Okay, so the grade 2 you can't really use because that one can only ride Herminia.
Okay.
Fortia, I'm pretty sure all need like friend stuff and all require each other.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to ride Fortia. Hazoret, that one is splashable in other decks. Because the grade 1 activates when you ride the grade 2, where you can call something and give it the Hazoret ability. Where it, end the battle, attacks, draw a card, put it on the bottom of the deck, and then the grade 2 just lets you... that one has to be rode by Hazoret, but the grade 1 is like somewhat usable generically.
Is it a bad sign that you were talking about playing the Kyrie ride line in that deck for this ride line?
Not necessarily. I do it because I wanted to save the... Because, like, the way that the calling effect works, because it's in the ride phase, doesn't work well with Melty.
True, because Melty does need to be in the main phase.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that, and also, like, I've come to realize that every time I resolved the effect, I felt like I was using a lot of early resources up. And so I decided that, like, Kyrie was just a more efficient version of what this is doing, because it kind of gets me the same results, where I can call cards for early like, I can get back cards that I lost early, and I can call cards for early aggro, and then put them away afterwards, so my opponent can't, like, attack them and damage deny me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think, like, both are valid, but I think I like the way Kyrie works for more early aggression, which I think is needed going into the current meta.
Sure.
So Kyrie is the key, it seems like, for a lot of this.
Yes. I haven't gotten my Calfies yet because I only just ordered a bunch of cards I needed for the next iteration of the deck, but we'll see how that works out. Maybe we'll record a fight video or something.
Mm-hmm. Still gotta think of a triangle meta, Series 3. Let's see, Leticia, Lilfa.
I believe Leticia needs her own cards because she needs curse plays.
Got it.
And then Lilfa, that one needs to be rode upon by Lilfa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never seen this card before.
Yeah, it's okay. You play Mediel, you tell me.
So Mediel does. It's just kind of when ridden upon by this Mediel, then this Mediel, and then it stacks cards. It's not really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I think all of the remaining ones just like only work when they're rode upon by like the next grade up, or when you ride from the previous grade for Michu.
Your cannonballs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then we get into the part that I do not care about.
The part that doesn't exist.
Snore, resident sleeper.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that was like every ride line. So what do you think makes for like a good ride line, and like why would people consider replacing their ride lines if possible?
For me, I think the most important thing like that that make like good generic ride lines is first of all not requiring like specific mechanics or archetypes or like so like searching like a set order is not really a restriction in Brank 8 because pretty much every Brank 8 deck has a set order. But also, like, gaining resources. Your ride line, you want to gain resources for you. You want to draw cards, you want to find cards, you want to get pressure, something.
Yeah.
And so that's really the most important thing about a ride line. So your ride line kind of counterblasting to, like, I don't know, look at your top card or something is kind of not where you want to be as far as, like, a good generic ride line. But Blaster Dart gives you a unit, right? That Rideline gives you a unit, and then Blaster Dart can pop something or Twin Drive if they don't play anything, which is reasonable.
Blaster Dart gets both. Like pop something and it still gets the Twin Drive.
If they have a low number of units, right?
No, it's just choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it, and it gets drive +1. I think you're thinking of the V version.
I am thinking of V Blaster Dark. My apologies.
Yeah. No, D Blaster Dark is infinitely better.
Yeah, just a straight improved version.
Mm-hmm. And then somehow Blaster Blade was a step back because the old Blaster Blade could gain a crit.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Well, he's got the little crit symbol up in the top right there.
But
go ahead. Matt pretty much summed it up. Like if it's early pressure or early card advantage, and I don't mean a cycle, I mean advantage. Mm-hmm. It's worth it outside of its initial ride line because like most other versions of Vanguard, grade 3 the grade 3s are the most important card in the deck. So it's a means to an end to use the ride line. Some of them are more important than others in terms of like getting pieces for your grade 3 to go off, but it is for that grade 3, and for the ones that aren't, it better be worth your time. It better be a Rancor chain. It better be a Blaster Dart.
And then, would you like to see them make more like Rideline type cards? Because I remember in set 6 they made a bunch of grade 3s that were Vanguard only, that kind of have their own thing going. They have the promo cards like Favor Neal and Graham Grace. So they've kind of made standalone grade 3s without ride lines. Like, would you like to see more just like Vanguard only, like grade 2s and 1s that were kind of designed to be ride line cards?
Yeah, like ride line fillers. Like, yeah, I think that would be something that's really good. And I think kind of the baseline they should be working for off ride lines is that every ride line should be a +2. Like it should recoup the cost of riding.
Yeah, do you mean the ride line overall or like each individual?
Like think like the overall. Like think about Rancor Shade into the grade 2. Well, you +1 off the first one if you have an order, and then you get the card back, so you're to +2. So like
minus
that's
the
kind of
discard for ride, but yeah.
But like I'm saying, like recoups the cost of riding,
right?
Which is I think the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it should kind of like push like it. You can make them generic enough where they kind of push decks in the direction they want to go, or like get cards that they like. If you've constructed a deck that's built around having a specific card, they should have ways to access that card instead of just I hope I draw it.
Yep,
and that's how you design Hexa Orb, ladies and gentlemen.
Just draw the grade 3 easy.
Yeah, exactly.
You have 3 of them.
So yeah, to the person watching this or listening to this, what do you think? What makes a good generic ride line card? Do you want to see more of those grade 1s and 2s like we just talked about? I think you can leave a review. Spotify is letting me do these like question things where like, what do you think of blank? And there's like a poll you can do. I'm going to start doing those. And then, leave a comment, leave a like. Thanks to $10 patrons, Darren, Cole, Josh, Jeremy, GR, and Ali. At Nexus at Night on Twitter, patreon.com/Nexus at Night. Help support the show. Merch, playmats, all that good stuff is down in the description/show notes. Where can they find the rest of us?
You can find me on Twitter at Wiggums, 2Gs, 2Zs.
You can find me at Plasma Eclipse.
Find me at Atlas Novak, Twitter, Instagram, or follow my other podcast at Generation Dan. The episode coming out is with comedian Teddy Margus, and we're talking about the little ways that we self-medicate. So, should be a good time. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Until next time, I was Atlas.
I'm still Matt.
I'm Root Beer.
And have a good night, everybody.
I forgot.